just to open things up here, I just want to give you kind of the takeaways up front in terms of spoiler alerts here. The one overarching thing I would like you to go away with today is that efficient HVAC management in smaller buildings is totally achievable today. There is a wide array of proven technology options and best practices that simply weren't available 5 to 10 years ago. So I think it really is a place of great optimism in this space. And if I break that down to three main things that I hope you get from this presentation that kind of cascade off of that. First is I'd like you to understand the array of HVAC control options for smaller buildings. Secondly, just want to give you a little snapshot of what a successful implementation can look like. And thirdly, finally, I want to point you to some resources that will be helpful, and I am one of those resources, so please reach out if you have questions beyond today. What's the opportunity? As we heard from Ted in the opening here, most commercial buildings are smaller buildings. 94% of commercial buildings in the US are less than 50,000 square feet, and only 5% of them even have smart thermostats. And today I'm not just talking about smart thermostats, but this statistic is a real pointer to just how big the opportunity is in this space. The benefits of improving controls, much the same as for larger buildings. You can save significant amounts on energy consumption, you can improve occupant comfort, and you can streamline maintenance and extend equipment life. So what we see in small buildings, of course, you may be involved in some of those small buildings yourself. We have smaller operations teams, there are lower energy budgets, there are conflicting priorities. Those are things that are not changing, but the solutions for energy management problems are getting easier to implement, and sustainability goals in companies are increasing urgency. So I think the perfect storm might be pushing it a little bit, but I think the conditions are definitely trending toward more of a need and a greater priority placed on these kinds of things. In terms of the benefits, I listed those off, but I think it's important to highlight here that there is some benefit to the audience of energy managers. There's also some great benefits around the maintenance and operations team, and I'll highlight that a bit more when I give a brief snapshot case study later. This graphic here is our way of trying to demystify and simplify the capabilities that are available to you if you have a building with packaged rooftop units. I'll just kind of tease out that point and emphasize it. So when we talk about smaller commercial buildings, there's really a dividing line among larger buildings that have these complex built-up HVAC systems that are really custom designed into the building versus smaller buildings that have packaged rooftop units. So what we're talking about here today is really those buildings served by packaged rooftop units, which are typically trending toward the smaller buildings. On the bottom step of this stairway, the status quo, as we saw in the stats on the last slide, is for many buildings just a standalone, call it a dumb thermostat on the wall. They may be programmable. Are they actually programmed right? I think the high chances that they are not. Scheduling and set points are often found to be wrong, and there really isn't visibility of that. So that's the status quo. That's what we really want to get beyond. And the first step beyond that is simply to have network thermostats that can communicate, that you can remotely access through some kind of central web-based platform. And at the very minimum, if you can use that to look across many HVAC units, check that set points and schedules are consistent across a campus or across many units and even in a single building, I think that gives you a step up to kind of get things operating to match operation schedules and then to maintain it over time. And part of that maintaining over time is that often these network thermostats have at least some element of trending and monitoring capabilities, so you can see where things are trending out of whack. So that's the sort of the relatively easy first step just replacing your thermostats and adding some level of communication in your buildings. If you go then to the advanced step, this is where you might want to go into more advanced capabilities. And to do that, you might need to install some extra controls hardware, perhaps some extra sensors. And that gives you things like economizer controls that take advantage of free cooling when the outside air temperature is cooler. And you can also do so-called demand control ventilation, where ventilation rates are matched to your level of occupancy in your buildings based on some extra sensing. You could also have some advanced analytical capabilities like fault detection and diagnostics. So that kind of builds on the network level. So network level, you're just replacing the thermostats and adding communications. At the advanced level, you're going to have to put in a bit more effort, a bit more cost to get the extra hardware and sensors in place, to get things configured, but you're going to get extra benefits in terms of comfort and energy efficiency. At the top step, grid interactive efficient building control. This is where you might look at things like load shift, coordinating the firing of different rooftop units so you don't have such high peak costs that can happen when all your units switch on at the same time. There could be some other kinds of response, etc. So that's kind of more at the cutting edge of capabilities. So from our standpoint as researchers that are trying to promote best practices, we don't naturally say everyone needs to get top step. I think that among the steps 2, 3, and 4 on this graphic, this is really, you pick what you feel is appropriate to your situation, to your costs, to your needs, and you can certainly build over time on these things. So what can this look like in practice? University of California in Davis is a great example here. They have a very long-standing, successful energy management program. They've been working with data analytics and optimization for over a decade, but those efforts really focus very much on the larger buildings with the large utility costs. They've got bigger teams, the biggest bang for the buck. But they have goals campus-wide, and they really could not keep ignoring their smaller buildings. And so they looked for solutions, and they came up with this particular initiative that they called Swarm. And you'll see on the slide here, which you can download, there's a link to a webinar that was given by UC Davis. So they had all these small buildings. They had a central BAS or building automation system, but the smaller buildings weren't connected to it. And doing so would be a level of complexity that really wasn't warranted. So they started this initiative to replace standalone thermostats with network thermostats. They're still going on with this. They've done over 100 buildings in this way to date. And what that enables them to do is remotely see what's happening in buildings. They can control via app or a web platform. They can make sure that their holiday schedules are right. They can make sure that set points are being maintained, etc. And one thing that is really critical that they found is that for the maintenance teams, if they get a call from somebody in a building that may be remote to the maintenance depot, they can actually look online to see what's happening in that building before they jump in a truck. Because sometimes they may be able to fix the issue remotely. Other times they may learn enough remotely that they know who they need to send out, what equipment needs to go there to fix the problem. So what we see here in terms of the benefits is that, yes, there are great energy savings. This whole project was driven by the need to get energy savings in these buildings. But what happened once this technology was in place was the maintenance team said, hey, we like this. This is really making our job easier. And so on an ongoing basis, the continued rollout to more and more buildings is now really being driven by the maintenance team who see this as a great benefit. And we've seen similar sentiment in other places as well. University of Iowa, slightly different context, but there's a great soundbite where they talk about these kinds of technologies being a maintenance support tool with energy benefits rather than an energy saving tool with maintenance benefits. I think that we're seeing more and more that maintenance teams are really embracing this kind of technology. Now, we know it can be hard to search for control and monitoring technologies. if you Google, look at the websites, they make it sound like every product is unique, every product can do everything. And so what we try and do as a national lab is to develop some guidance that can help on product selection. And since we don't endorse or approve products, our approach is more about sort of gearing to geared around teaching you how to fish rather than giving you the products in terms of an approved list. So I'll highlight a couple of examples here. First one is the product selection guidance document. And this is the document that equips you to ask the right questions for your internal departments and also externally with technology vendors as you hone in on the solution that will work for you. And then once you get to a short list of possible products, this resource can help you get some kind of apples to apples comparison between products. So as an example, on the left-hand side of this slide, you'll see all the topics that are covered in this document. And then we've highlighted the one here on connectivity. So, it's important to be asking questions about what can get onto your existing internet network and also how it's making that connection. You may find that your IT department has strong feelings on that. They may have specific standards to meet, or they may just have preferences. And this is a tool that helps you have that conversation with your IT department, with other departments, so that you can get a clear idea of what's going to meet your needs before you go out, start talking to vendors, and maybe have them do some technology demonstrations for you. So educational, hopefully it's useful. We found that people are using this to maybe develop product spec sheets when they go out to get some prices and bids on technology products. And there may be plenty of other ways to use this as well. So next up, and this is a screenshot. I just didn't mention this before, but if you go to the URL on this slide, you'll see these documents. You'll see some other documents on UC Davis and other useful resources on that website. So this is a categorized product listing. So earlier I showed the stairway graphic that described the different classes of functionality, and that's kind of the what. What is it that you want to achieve in terms of capabilities? Beyond the what, there is the how. So this table is something that helps with that. And this table lists vendors and their products tagged across 4 columns. So first column, networked thermostatic control. This is really denoting kind of the base unit of a networked thermostat, which will have remote access for adjusting set points and schedules, typically with some level of monitoring and data trending. The second column, advanced RTU control, denotes those capabilities like economizer controls, demand control ventilation, where additional hardware, sensors, and control logic will be needed. So in some cases, you could get a network thermostatic control. You then have the option then to buy as a separate add-on the advanced control capabilities onto that. So you can choose whether you have it or not. That's the case for UC Davis. They have the same thermostat everywhere. In some cases, they've kind of bolted on that advanced RTU control capability from the same vendor. The third and fourth columns here are what we call light commercial BAS. And this is really more to do with what is your circumstance in the buildings. So for example, if you just have single zone packaged rooftop units, single unit serves a single zone, most network thermostatic control products will deal with that. But if you have multi-zone HVAC systems with a bit more complexity, not all products will deal with that. So we have a column so that if you have that kind of building that you want to add controls to, we've denoted which products do that. Similarly, if you want to, integrate with your lighting controls or plug load controls, that could be a different type of product again. So we have those 2 columns separated out. We call that light commercial BAS. So I really want to kind of emphasize enough that the point at the bottom of this slide, which is that we're not endorsing or improving products. We've worked with all these vendors to document their capabilities and to put them into this table. There are other products out there that we either haven't got to yet, or they haven't quite got their act together in terms of authorizing us to list them in this table. We hope to add over time, but I just want to make it clear that whether a product is or isn't in this table does not denote that we think one is better than the other. We just hope eventually to get all the products out there. So just moving to the last couple slides here, then we'll have time for Q&A if people have questions here. One of the piece of work that I'm involved in here at Berkeley Lab, funded by DOE, is the Smarter Small Buildings campaign. So everything I presented here today was developed in support of that campaign. They are for general use, of course, but we're looking to grow the resources around this product area for small building HVAC controls. So any building with packaged HVAC can participate in this campaign. And the benefits of participating are that we can provide you with one-on-one technical assistance. We will provide resources and webinars, some of which you've seen right now. And where we see that organizations are implementing best practices or doing things in an innovative way, getting high savings or whatever, we can offer recognition through this DOE campaign. So we're really trying to help get the market, more primed to accept these kind of controls, because as I said at the top of the presentation, there are great products out there right now ready to be installed. We know there are always speed bumps along the way. And so some of the ways that we provide technical assistance to help navigate those speed bumps along the pathway to installing these controls and operating them would be things like helping you decide which products to install. We have resources for that. We can also provide some one-on-one technical assistance that helps you work out some of the trade-offs and decision parameters there. Getting buy-in from your internal team, depending on what the challenges are and who you're talking to, we can help you build that case to push internally for these things and understand, what some data you might need to make the case. Could we connect you with some peers who are in the similar situation to you, or maybe 2 steps ahead, that can tell you how they overcame some of the challenges that you are now facing? Recognition opportunities, I mentioned that already. And also in terms of resources, we have list of manufacturers. We have many partners on the website as well that you could potentially talk to overcome this. And we're going to be running this campaign for the next approximately 5 years, and we certainly hope to assist you at whatever stage you're at, or even if you're just curious to learn more about the technology topic. You don't necessarily have to enroll as a formal participant in the campaign to receive assistance from us. We just want to spread the gospel. So I will pause there. I could probably waffle on for plenty of time, but if I can also check to see if we've got any Q&A coming in. No questions yet. It looks like Ted maybe have some comments while we wait for.
Yeah, I do. I've audited hundreds and hundreds of small businesses. The 2,000 to 5,000 square foot mom and pops, and how do we get this type of information in their hands? Has the Smart Buildings campaign done anything to address that area, or any of the work you've been involved with to help out with that?
Yeah, thanks, Ted. So it's tricky, and maybe that's why you asked the question. There are so many of those kinds of organizations, and so for us, we launched this campaign around about 6 months ago. Over the 5-year period, we hope to spread our influence as far and wide as possible. So if I think about us with the team we have at the National Lab, we can serve, let's say, in terms of direct technical assistance, in the sort of 100 to 200 participants. Our team is kind of equipped at that level. When you talk about the kind of businesses you're talking about there, that's, tens, hundreds of thousands of organizations. And so what we aim to do is more likely to directly interface with organizations like higher education, community colleges, state and county governments, city governments, small regional chains, these kinds of small to medium portfolios of buildings. I think we're really well equipped to engage with them directly. And then for the much smaller mom and pops, what we hope to do, or what we are already in progress doing, is develop partnerships with utilities, with regional organizations that have those direct connections. So it could be nonprofit community-based organizations or utilities or regional energy efficiency organizations that have those ground level local relationships. And what we hope to do by partnering with them is to make sure that they are equipped to serve their audience with that kind of support. So we certainly hope to indirectly reach those, but it's hard for us to really engage mom and pops.
Yeah, and what comes to mind to me is the Better Buildings campaign, and the city of Milwaukee, where I live, gets involved with that. They have done a lot of work in the city promoting conservation, and so that falls within the groups you mentioned that would be good to talk with and connect with. Um, and many states like Wisconsin have a statewide energy conservation program. Ours called Focus on Energy. So that would be an area that would be good for that. Um, so let me see here. I have a question here. That list that you showed earlier, that PDF, is that a document that's updated regularly? Is it online?
It is online. Yeah, the URL you see on the screen right now
Yes,
has
it is.
a subpage for resources, and that's there. It's in terms of updating, I would think at least annually we'd be adding some. It depends on the pace at which we can get our teeth into the vendors to give us the information we need. Because it's
Yeah,
even hard for us sometimes to look at the websites and be like, what does this product do again? So yeah, it will
I
be
hear you.
updated over time.
All right. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up. Elliot, you have any last words to say, or?
Only just, please reach out if you have any questions, however vague, or sort of how uncertain you are of whether this is right for you. I think that we're very interested in two angles. One is, are there people in the audience here who have an influence on the buildings that they occupy, that maybe could be improved through these controls? The other is from an educational standpoint. Do you work with curriculum that targets HVAC technicians, and then maybe there could be a benefit from them learning more about this kind of technology that is not super well known right now? We're happy to engage on either of those angles, but please do reach out.
One question did come in, so I'm going to ask you really quickly. What resources or such as grants might be available for college campuses to acquire equipment and software upgrades to improve their controls? So tying a little bit into what you just said in your closing statement, um, is there anything out there for that?
Yeah.
Huh?
It's not something that we have in our arsenal right now in terms of knowing how you could secure that funding. We don't have funding. It is kind of on our roadmap to try and get a handle on the IRA funding, just to see if there are pathways there that would ideally fit this. But yeah, we don't have any kind of categorical advice on grant funding or other funding sources beyond, let's say, utilities that do offer rebates for these kind of things.
Okay. All right. Well, Elliot, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Kim.